So here I'm in Sydney, but I'm normally pastor in central London, in Mayfair, Christchurch Mayfair, where I've been for the last, I guess off and on 14 years now, since the church began in 2001. What else would you like to know? Married to the wonderful Kerry, with a son, yeah. That particular part of central London, it isn't very high density in terms of living, because it's more of a working district in Mayfair. So actually in the immediate environment of the church, there's very few people would live, unless you're a multi-Russian millionaire, that sort of thing. Although Jose Mourinho currently has a house backs onto the church, but he's also
Jose Mourinho is a football coach of Chelsea.
That's right.
Just for our Australian audience.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm liking Jose, but we're at a tube nexus. So London really is a public transport city, unlike Sydney. You don't really drive in London unless you absolutely have to, just because the volume of people there. So we're a very good transport nexus. So I don't know, maybe 20% maximum would walk to church. Maybe the absolute max of that. A few would drive. Most would come in on the tube. And then, so the church originally was planted with young professionals as an evening congregation. We figure in London, if you're going to do young professionals, you have to have a reasonable bulk to start with. A crowd attracts with that demographic, we reckon. Although, ironically, a crowd attracts, but then after a while, they quite like small. So you've got to try and manage both of those. And then a few years later, people married, had children, so we began a morning congregation as well. Yeah, there isn't a rule, but it broadly goes like this: that in the morning congregation, people do meet in home groups, and so I say very few live right on top of the church, but there's kind of three different areas between about 10-15 minutes walk away from journey away from church, where there's a reasonable sort of cluster of people living. So they'd meet in homes, but in the evening congregation, generally on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, there are small groups centrally in the church, and each of those nights would have about 50-60 people, so half a dozen small groups. So that way everyone's in a small group of about 10 or so, but also on the night you've got about 60. So everyone will come in, have dinner together, and it just means you get to know your small group, but also, after a little while you certainly recognise faces and probably names of the 60 odd. So that on a Sunday, it isn't just the 10 people you know. Probably a number of reasons. One, people work closer to the church than they live, for some. In London, your classic 20-something young professional will work centrally, socialise centrally, to be part of church centrally, that's how they live their lives. They may not know their neighbours either side of them. Lots of people, everyone pretty much in that age bracket, will be in a flat share, not always with Christians, so having groups at home, some difficulties to that. So probably a mixture of those reasons. Also, often leaders are going to be young of those small groups, and if you have everything done centrally, it enables you to look after the leaders and train the leaders a bit better. So we, like many, I guess a similar model would often have, if the evening runs, it would vary on the different nights, but say 7 o'clock is dinner, 7:45 is the study, 8:45 you finish, and everyone's gone by 9. Often we'd have a prep session for the leaders, say 6:30 to 7:15, helping them understand next week's passage, just talking through some issues of leadership. So just with the younger leaders, I mean, it's a bit, you've got a 45-year-old home group leader who's been a Christian all his life. He's great. He looks after. He knows how to look after people. You've got someone who's 26, they might not quite as well. They might need a bit more help. So it has that advantage as well of the sort of central gathering. you have to be generous.
Yeah.
Emotionally, you've got to be prepared for it, I think. So this is trite, but just in our family, you do get tired of saying goodbye to people. You invest, you open your heart, you love, they go. So we slightly operate in our family on the mantra of expect people to leave, love them while they're here, enjoy them while they're here, and open champagne if they stay. Now, we don't literally do that, but you do this, and actually having that in your head sort of helps expectations. I'm here in Sydney. There are at least 100 former members of CCM here in Sydney. Caught up with a big stack for dinner the other night. Wonderfully encouraging. It was slightly bittersweet. You think, oh, if you'd all stayed, it would be wonderful. But they don't. Yeah. But knowing that, you got to. We have a fairly unremarkable strategy. We're trying to grow disciples, but we know we're doing that for the kingdom of God and not for Christchurch Mayfair. It's just the reality. And sometimes it's the step back that really helps. So someone produced some stats for a sort of finance update the other day, and it was, in the last 10 years, 57 people sent into ministry around the world, either in the UK or overseas. And you think, well, we haven't grown enormously here, but that's terrific. Oh, thank you, whoever actually bothered to add up the numbers. You've made my year. So you've got to see that, and so part of the whole training of young leaders and young professionals is they're going to go, but you just accept that you're playing your part in a much bigger picture.